Hari Om. Gunatitamānam chidanandarupam chidabhasakam sarvagam dhyanagamyam munidhyeyamakasharupam paresham parabrahmarupam ganesham bhajema parabrahmarupam ganesham bhajema. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste friends. Param Vedanta welcomes you to session 73 of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. There is a stotra which is chanted while doing Sandhya Vandanam, which goes like this. Prithyapastejo vayurakashat Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Yam Sada Sarva Bhutani Sthavarani Charani Cha Sayam pratar namasyanti Sama sandhya virakshatu Shri Sama sandhya virakshatpon nama iti. Both these verse stotras depict the Vibhuti of the Lord and declare that the whole universe, including Panchabhutas, is none other than Lord Himself. Today, we'll be studying verses 21 to 30, in which we see Lord Krishna enumerating a few of his Vibhutis. We are going to come across a few interesting Vibhutis like Sthavaranam Himalaya, I am Himalaya amongst mountains. Pandavanam Dhananjaya, I am Arjuna amongst Pandavas. Indriyanam Manaschasmi, I am Manas in Indriyas. And Giramasmekam Aksharam, in the words I am Omkara, etc., which counts to 72 in all. Come on friends, today and in the next session, let's enjoy the different manifestations of the Lord. Today, we'll be missing Dr. Hegde sir as he could not be present for this session. In his absence, Dr. Sundar, one of the most eminent students of Param Vedanta and a prolific speaker who can talk authoritatively on spiritual matters, will host and moderate today's session. At the end of the class, we will have chanting of these verses. But now it's time to revisit the verses we studied in our last session. Dr. Ravi Shankar sir will take us through those verses. Over to you, Dr. Ravi Shankar sir.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. All the Vibhutis or the glorifications till the previous verse were a namakam. From this 16th verse, Arjuna asks for favors from the Lord as a chamakam. He requests Krishna to teach him all the glories, all the divya, extraordinary, alaukik vibhutis with which he pervades the whole creation. In the 17th verse, Arjuna asks for these vibhutis with a purpose, to move from the mundane to divine, to have a support and alambanam for Ishvara dhyana, to meditate, do upasana on total Ishvara, which is the Virat meditation. He mentions the benefit to be able to visualize the Vishwarupa Ishvara, to know the higher nature, Tvam Aham Vindhyam, to know the Nirguna Brahma or the Arupa Ishvara, and says that a limited mind needs this alambanam for sadhana chatushtaya as well as to reduce the raga dvesha. In the 18th verse, Arjuna exclaims, "O Janardhana," meaning the one who receives many petitions, he was the most sought after. Your own Yoga Shakti, Atma Shakti, Maya Shakti being mentioned in the 7th and 8th chapter in a few verses is not enough. The yoga, which is the inferred anumeyam, and the vibhuti, which is the perceived pratyaksham, like space is so vast and so potential. It is like amrita, and I am not satisfied. Therefore, please give us a very clear, elaborate aspect of the same vibhutis. And hence, in the next verse, Sri Bhagwan Uvacha, he says, very well, I will now narrate these glories of mine, these vibhutis, which are extraordinary and which are limitless. Hey Arjuna, the glorious among the Kuru people, Kuru Shrestha, you actually can be a symbol of meditation too. In the 20th verse, which is now a Mahavakya, Lord Krishna begins with his highest vibhuti as the Chaitanya, the Chidrupa, the sentiency or the chit aspect by saying Ahamatma. Meditate on I am. Life is a manifestation of the Ishvara Vibhuti. The cause is always manifest in the effect as the very existence in the form of isness. O Gudakesha, the one who has conquered Tamoguda and who is now the Sattva-guni Arjuna, look upon me as consciousness. I am situated in all the beings as an indweller, Sarva Bhuta Sasya Sthitaha, as a witnessing consciousness principle, observing all the thoughts and even its absence. This is the only Paramarthika Satya. All the other Vibhutis, being born out of the Maya Shakti, are the Vyavaharika Satya, which is a lower order of reality. Lord says, I am the beginning, middle, and the end. I am the Shrishti Sthiti Laya Karana of this creation, from the beginning, if there is a beginning, till the end, if there is an end. Hence, see the clay in all the pots, before, while, and after the pot existed. Abide in this consciousness principle for permanent peace, security, and happiness. Without Vedantic knowledge, meditation of this form is not possible. He concludes in the 39th verse as the Sadrupa Vibhuti. He begins in the 20th verse as the Nirguna Mahima, as the consciousness principle, and he has all the Saguna Mahima in the middle of these verses. Shri Guru Bhyo Namah.
Thank you, Ravi Shankar sir, for the recap of the previous class. I shall present a brief introduction to today's verses. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We are presently studying the 10th chapter, which is in the Madhyama Shatakam. The Madhyama Shatakam started with an incredible promise from Lord Krishna in the beginning of the 7th chapter, where the Lord said, I shall bring you face to face with God. In the verses in that chapter, Lord Krishna defines God as Jagat Karanam. So there are verses in the 7th chapter which talk about Vedic cosmology. God is described as a combination of Paraprakriti and Aparaprakriti. Paraprakriti is also described as Brahman or consciousness principle, and Aparaprakriti as Maya or matter. While the Paraprakriti remains the same, the Aparaprakriti in the verses as described in that chapter, through a two-stage modification, becomes this multiplistic, pluralistic universe. So in the verses of that chapter, the Lord goes on to say that we face the problem of samsara because we are always lost in the ever-attractive Aparaprakriti and miss the Paraprakriti. And he gives the solution for this problem of samsara as being bhakti, where one can now focus back on Paraprakriti. Through the chapters of the Madhyama Shatakam, the Lord leads us through 3 levels of bhakti to solve this problem of samsara. As we shall see in this next slide, therefore, in the chapters of Madhyama Shatakam, Lord Krishna brings us to an understanding of 3 levels of bhakti and thereby an understanding of 3 levels of God depending upon our maturity. So this manner, he fulfills his promise that he shall comprehensively get us to know about God, both his lower natures as well as the higher nature. In this slide, let us try to understand what are the 3 levels of bhakti and thereby what are the 3 levels of understanding God himself. So the Lord defined God as being Jagat Karanam. Depending on the Karanam status, we can see that there are 3 levels of bhakti. At the most basic level, for the most immature among the bhaktas, God is described as Nimitta Karanam. He is the intelligent cause of this universe. So he is seen as somebody who is all-knowing, all-powerful, not available through my senses to see, somewhere far away, and he creates this world. For a little mature bhakta, the understanding is God is infinite everywhere. Therefore, how to understand the God who is far away? For this level, there is the second, little more mature level of bhakti, which is called Vishwarupa Ishvara Bhakti. God is all encompassing. He should include everything that is there in this creation. Therefore, if he is the intelligent cause, with what material did he create this universe? So this is a question which a little mature bhakta might come about. So for this second level of bhakti, God is described as not just Nimitta Karanam, the intelligent cause, but Upadana Karanam as well. Other than God, there is no other material. So this creation came out of God. So in the first level, the understanding was God is the creator. In the second level, we are shown that God became this world. So from the created, he has become, from the creator, he has become the created. So while in the earlier understanding, God was perceived as somewhere far away, in the second level of understanding, dramatically, since this world has come out of God, God becomes very proximate. Everything around me is a manifestation of God. An understanding is given by the example of the pot and the clay. The clay inheres in the pot, and there is no pot other than the clay. In the same manner, all ornaments are made up of gold, all furnitures are made up of wood. So here we are given an understanding that God is immanent. He is in and through this creation. Now, at both these levels, when we say he is a creator or he is a created, there is a problem in that it signifies that either as a creator or created, he undergoes change. Whereas it is taught in the Upanishads that God is attributeless, he is formless, he is changeless. So therefore, there is a problem to understand God as Nimitta Karanam and Upadana Karanam. So for this, scriptures take us to the highest level of bhakti, which is Arupa Ishvara Bhakti, and the highest, the true nature of God, which is formless God, where we are made to understand by the Shastras, by the Guru, that for the immature level, it is okay to understand that he created or he became the world. But the truth is that this world is a false manifestation upon a attributeless, changeless, formless form of God. So he is neither the creator, he is neither the created, he appears as the world. So this understanding is called as God being transcendent. Another way to understand these three levels is, in the first level, God is something which I have heard about. He is Paroksha. Therefore, I do not have a constant touch. Only whenever there is a spiritual occasion, he appears. Whenever there is a puja, he appears. Later, I may not have a connect with God. Whereas in the middle level, he becomes Pratyaksha. Verily, everything that I sense around me is now God. Therefore, I am never separate from God. There is never a moment when there is no devotion, because I am surrounded by God at all moments and wherever I go. In the third level, the understanding is that the manifest creation is Kevala Nama Rupa. It is experientially available, but factually it is absent. The only truth, the singular reality is Arupa Ishvara, Nirguna Swarupa Ishvara, Brahman or Atman, which is a singular reality outside of me as well as within me. So the true nature, my true nature is the same as the true nature of everything else outside me. And this understanding is called aparoksha jnanam. The first and the second level signify saguna form of the Lord. In the first form, it may be in the name of a deity in the temple. In the second, it is aneka rupa or vishwarupa, where all forms, the entire manifest creation is God. In this chapter, we also see that even unmanifest, which is going to become manifest later, that also is God, as Saguna, Vishwarupa, Ishvara. And in the final analysis, the highest level is Nirguna or formless God. We are taught of a methodology, Adhyaropa Apavada Nyaya. So the teaching is light by itself is not manifest. Whereas when I bring my hand in between, now since I can see the hand, I can infer that there is an entity called as light, which this hand has brought into my focus. So whenever there is something which is not apparent and a second entity is brought in to make us focus on the non-apparent thing, Adhyaropa Apavada works. So in a way, Ekarupa and Vishwarupa Ishvara work as Adhyaropa. The formless Ishvara cannot be perceived initially. So the formed Ekarupa and Vishwarupa act as Adhyaropa. And once I get an understanding of Arupa Ishvara, then we can, at that level of maturity, negate the Ekarupa, Vishwarupa, Ishvara as Apavada and dwell in Advaitam. This is the play of one, the one in the play of the many. Now, this entire chart becomes relevant for this chapter in the last two rows. In the Ekarupa Ishvara Bhakti, there is Ragadvesha, which is naturally ingrained in us. Whereas in the Arupa Ishvara Bhakti, when the world has been falsified, there is no occasion to have Ragadvesha towards a second thing, because other than Brahman, there is nothing else. Everything else that is Brahman in the guise of something with Namarupa. So there is no Ragadvesha. So Krishna is asking us to take this leap from Ragadvesha to zero Ragadvesha, which initially appears impossible. And Lord Krishna offers Vishwarupa Ishvara Bhakti as a stepping stone, a boat on which I can sail towards the Arupa Ishvara. How does Vishwarupa Ishvara form a stepping stone? This we'll see in this next slide. So intense Ragadvesha to zero Ragadvesha, as signified from the jump from Ekarupa to Arupa, appears impossible. Representatively, the Vishwarupa Ishvara is shown as a brick here, but we have to understand that this is just symbolic in this picture. Vishwarupa Ishvara represents everything in the manifest creation, as well as the unmanifest, which will become manifest later. The Vishwarupa Ishvara teaches us that everything around me is God. How does this reduce my Ragadvesha? Initially, when I do not have this understanding, I have Ragadveshas towards objects, situations, and persons. But when everything is a manifestation of Lord, how can I have Dvesha, or how can I have Raga towards one particular thing as in comparison to another? Because everything is a manifestation of God. So this understanding reduces Ragadveshas to a large extent. And in this manner, the Vishwarupa Ishvara or the Vibhuti Yoga helps us to make this leap towards the Arupa Ishvara. So the 10th chapter begins with a statement from Lord Krishna that he shall impart this glorious teaching once again to Arjuna. And what is this glorious teaching? The glorious teaching in the verses 4th, 5th, and 6th is that the entire inner world of thoughts, the entire external world of beings, everything is a manifestation of the Lord. In other words, he is letting out the knowledge of Vibhuti Yoga or the Vishwarupa Ishvara to Arjuna, that everything is a manifestation of the Lord. In the 7th verse, Lord Krishna says that if you have this knowledge that everything around, everywhere, at all times is the Lord, then you are undoubtedly blessed with an unshakable knowledge of Arupa Ishvara. So there is a direct promise here that if you invest in Vishwarupa Ishvara, you will sail to Arupa Ishvara. The same conviction is reinforced in the subsequent shlokas, where the Lord says, may you know that everything manifest and unmanifest is the Lord. All experiences come from Him. If you dwell on this understanding, you shall be blessed with Buddhi Yoga, which we have to understand as Jnana Yoga, which leads us to the Jnana understanding of Nirguna Ishvara. Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mam Upayantite. So here Mam refers to Arupa Ishvara. He goes on to tell in this beautiful verse that if you have the understanding of Ishvarupa Ishvara, then I shall reside in your mind and light the brilliant light of Advaitam so that you can understand, can have an aparoksha jnanam of Nirguna Ishvara. So to summarize, we have to understand that everything manifest and unmanifest is Lord. And if we can constantly dwell on this fact, this reality, that everything is God, sooner or later, the true nature of God, which is attributeless, formless, which is also our true nature, will dawn on us. So Arjuna understood this, but his dilemma was that everything means such a vast universe. How can he, in one lifespan, try to understand everything that is there around him? How can he meditate on everything which is there around him? So he asked the Lord, tell me, keshu keshu cha bhaveshu, in what and what objects can you be meditated upon? Thus comes the famous list of Vibhutis, 72 among them, which were enumerated, of which the first and the last, 2 of them belong to the Paramarthika Satyam, and the remaining 70 in between reveal the Vyavaharika Satyam or the Saguna nature. In this class will be covered 39 such Vibhutis. With this brief intro, I shall introduce Shukumar sir to present the Vibhutis in the verses 21 and 22. Shukumar sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sundar. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Arjuna requested Lord Krishna to enumerate all his glories for us to take any one as an alambanam or support for meditating upon the Lord. Lord first enumerates his greatest glory as the very Nirguna Chaitanyam, but to appreciate this, one has to be a Gnani, but this is not possible for Agnanis. Lord explains Saguna Vibhutis from verse 20 onwards. From verse 21 onwards. Krishna says in verse 21, all the glorious things of creation are his own manifestation. Some are Laukika Vibhutis and many are based on Puranas and scriptures. As per Bhagavatam and Shiva Purana, all Devatas are children of Rishi Kashyapa and Mata Aditi. Most known Devata is Aditya, the sun god, commonly known to be one. But scriptures say that there are Dvadasha Aditya or 12 Adityas. One Aditya Devata presiding over each of the 12 phases of the moon, each in the 12 months with varying effect. The midsummer sun called varying effect from pleasant to scorching heat in summer. Among these, Krishna says, Adityan Aham Vishnu. I am that Aditya, the midsummer sun called Vishnu. Madhusudana Saraswati says, Vamana, a avatara of Krishna and the youngest son of Mata Aditi and Rishi Kashyapa, is that Aditya referred to in this verse. Jyotisham Ravi Ramushuma. of all the sources of prakasha, light in the sky, stars, planets, and the sun, I am the blazing sun with brilliant, powerful rays. I am that Pratyaksha Ishvara. He says, Marichi Marutam Asmi. The Puranas here further state that Rishi Kashyapa fathered Daityas, that is Asuras, from his second wife Diti. Diti, further desirous of a son more powerful than Indra, got a boon, and accordingly she kept her baby in her womb for 100 years. Indra, feeling threatened, used his Vajrayuda and split her fetus into many pieces. But instead of destroying, it turned into many fetuses. These became the 49 Marut Devatas, presiding over different textures of wind. Krishna states that his Vibhuti manifests in the wind called Paribaha or Marichi, the one who presides over that gentle, pleasant breeze. Nakshatranam aham shashihi. Among the luminaries of the night, comprising of the moon, planets, stars, I am the moon or Chandra Devata. Coming to verse 22, Krishna says, Vedanam Samaveda Asmi. I am Samaveda among the four Vedas. Samaveda is musical in nature, melodious, containing all the swaras, and is the basis for all of music. The Bhagavad Purana mentions that the hymns that form the basis of Samaveda were vibrated by the flapping wings of Lord's Vahana, Garuda. And the 7 musical notes, Sare, Gama, Padha, Ni, originated from Samaveda. Now, from the verse, as in the slide, next slide, we see Devanam Asmi Vasavaha. I am Vasavaha or Indra Devata, who controls all the Devatas. Swami Paramarthananda Saraswati reminds us that all Devatas are finite gods and should not be confused with the infinite Brahman, the Maya Sahita Chaitanyam, Sarvagna, Sarveshwara, Srishti Sthiti Layakarta, Punya Papa Atita Ishvara. Krishna says, Indriyanam Aham Asmi Manaha. Among all the sense organs, 5 Pancha Karmendriyas and Pancha Gnanendriyas, Krishna says, I am the mind. Every sense organ is capable of only one function. Whereas mind being superior to all the sense organs, Krishna says, I am the mind. Swamiji says, if you want to invoke the Lord in any one of your organs, mind is an ideal symbol. He says, Bhutanam Asmi Chetana. Krishna says, I am that Chetana, consciousness conditioned by intellect, resulting in discriminative, rational thinking capacity in you, making you a nobler, intelligent, sentient principle which enlivens the body. I am the very life in all the living beings. Bhutanam aham chetana asmi, chidabasaha aham asmi. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Krishna.
Thank you, Shukumar sir, for bringing to us the 8 Vibhutis in the previous 2 verses. In the previous class was covered the Chitrupa Nirguna Swarupa Vibhuti, and in today's classes are being covered the Saguna Vibhutis. So these verses covered 8 such Vibhutis. In the luminaries of the day, I am the radiant sun. Among the Maruts, I am Marichi. Among the luminaries of the night, I am the moon. Among the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. Among the gods, I am Indra. Among the organs of perception, I am the mind. Among living beings, I am consciousness. I now invite Neetaji to present the next 7 Vibhutis.
Thank you, Dr. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the Madhyama Shatkam, we understand that God is not just a creator, but it is the very creation also. We cannot see Ishvara, the creator, but as the creation, he is pratyaksha, right in front of us. God is not remote then. On Arjuna's request, Lord Krishna gives a sample set of 72 Vibhutis. It is easy to appreciate and meditate on God as the most glorious things. Vibhuti Yoga, to see God in the manifested state, is an intermediary but crucial stage in our spiritual progress. In these shlokas, Krishna is enumerating his prominent Vibhutis connected with different groups of devatas in the higher lokas. One can find many Puranic-based stories on these Vibhutis. Verse 23, Rudranam Shankarashchasmi Vittesho Yaksha Rakshasam Vasunam Pavakaschasmi Meru Shikarinamaham. The Rudras are 11 different forms of Lord Shiva. The Puranas have named them differently in different places. And amongst these, Krishna says, I'm Shankara, meaning the most auspicious one. Shankara means Ananda Mangalam. One of the meanings of Rudra is the one who removes sorrow, Dukha Nashika. Now, among another group of devatas called Yakshas and Rakshasas, Krishna says, Aham Vittesha. Vitta Isha means Lord of Wealth, who is Kubera. These Yakshas and Rakshasas are very fond of acquiring wealth and hoarding it. Their leader is Kubera, who's also the treasurer of all the celestial gods. And Krishna says, I am Kubera. The next group of devatas are the Vasus, 8 Vasus. They are land, water, fire, air, space, sun, moon, and stars. They constitute the gross structure of the universe. Amongst them, Agni, fire, gives warmth and energy to the rest of the elements. Agni is very important to us. Krishna says, I am Agni Devta amongst the Ashtavasus. He uses the term Pavakaha. Pavakaha means purifier, and Agni is called Pavakaha because it is the greatest purifier. If you want to purify anything, it has to be heated, including food, water, the medical instruments. The sun's heat is the big purifier. To dispose the dead body, fire is still the best method of purification. Amongst the peaked mountains, I am the Meru Parvatam. Where exactly is Meru is debated even now. But Meru is a Parvatam described not only in the Puranas, but even in the Vedas. It is believed Meru is a mountain in the celestial abodes, famed for its rich natural resources. It is the axis around which many heavenly bodies rotate. Sri Krishna thus speaks of it as his glory. Verse 24. Purudoshamscha mukhyam mam vidhim partha brahaspatim senani namaham skandaha sarasamasmi sagaraha. Brahaspati is the topmost of all priests in the heavens, who helps Indra and the Devtas. He is the chief. Here, Sri Krishna says that amongst the celestial Prohits, he is Brahaspati. Among the commander-in-chief in the celestial army, the Deva Senapati, I am Skanda. Lord Skanda or Subramanyam emerged out of Lord Shiva's third eye to destroy some Rakshasa who had extraordinary strength. Swamiji says, Krishna mentions this glory because if you are an army man, it makes sense to do upasana on Lord Skanda, the foremost, the best commander. And then amongst all the reservoirs of water, I am Sagara, the ocean. So there is a long Puranic story associated with Sagara. Our teacher, Dr. Hegde, narrated the story in the last class. In short, I'll just repeat. There was a Sagara king. He had 60,000 sons, 60,001 sons, and the 60,000 sons dug a big reservoir but got cursed and destroyed. Bhagiratha, a descendant of the clan, brought the Gaṅgā river down from heavens to earth to revive his ancestors. And Krishna says, I am the ocean, the Sagara. In conclusion, since meditating on the Nirguna Swarupam is difficult, one can take any one of the glories as a symbol of alambanam and do Saguna Ishvara Upasana. Like Arjuna, instead of looking for a miracle to see a remote God, we see God in everything. This transforms my perception of the world. My raga, dvesha, likes and dislikes become weak and feeble. I learn to decondition. I learn to accept. As we progress on the spiritual path, we will learn to appreciate and accept even people, things, and events we dislike or have aversion to as an integral part of creation as God. One prayer should be, Dear Lord, whatever I see is your darshan only. Let it be natural to me. The Anvaya of these verses is Lord Krishna says, amongst the Rudras, I am Shankara. Amongst the Yaksha Rakshas, I am Vitesha. Amongst the 8 Vasus, I am Pavakaha. Amongst the Shikhas, I am Meru. Amongst the foremost priests, I am Brahaspati. Amongst the commanders, I am Skanda, and of the water reservoirs, I am the ocean. Hari Om.
Thank you, Neetaji, for explaining the 7 Vibhutis in the last 2 verses. And again, reinforcing for all of us that using this, any of the Vibhutis as alambana and meditating on them, realizing that everything around me is of the manifestation of the Lord. So I cannot afford to have raga for one in comparison to the other or dvesha to anything. I shall mature gradually spiritually and then continue the spiritual ascent towards the Nirguna Ishvara. Now, for the next 2 verses, I invite Dr. Rekha. Dr. Rekha, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sundar. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the 10th chapter, Lord Krishna talks about the unique nature of God, where he's both the intelligent and the material cause of all creation. We understand that the creation of any product, for example, a pot, needs an intelligent cause, which is inferred, that is the potter, and the perceived material, which is clay. The product, that is the but it is never away from the material cause. So the pot is made of clay, whether the potter is seen or not. Coming to the universe or creation and extending the analogy, we learn and accept with our minds and intellect that God is the intelligent cause, and that is Paroksha Gnanam. But our incomplete knowledge regarding God causes confusion as to what the material cause of the universe is. So what material does God use? And the answer is God himself. Because God manifests as the universe, just as the seed has the potential to manifest as the tree, and this property is called Vibhuti. It tells us that everything in the universe that we can see and touch is a manifestation of the Lord alone, and this is Pratyaksha Gnanam. Next slide, please. Since Arjuna requests Lord Krishna in verses 17 and 18, the Chamakam, for his glories to be described and to give him an alambana or a finite symbol on which he can meditate, Lord Krishna says he will tell Arjuna only the most important of his limitless glories. And from verse 20 to verse 39, as we have heard repeatedly, Lord Krishna gives a very elaborate list. The greatest glories of all are the Nirguna Swarupa Vibhuti, the Chit or consciousness, the sentiency as Vibhuti in verse 20, and Sat or existence, the very isness of living and non-living things as Vibhuti in verse 39. So we understand that the best form of meditation is Sat Chit Rupena, to see the Lord everywhere as Sat Chit Rupa. But this meditation on Nirguna Sat Nirguna Chit is difficult. And Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, and in effect us, that a Saguna Swarupa Alambana may be easier to worship as God. But we have to understand that there are limitations with this version of seeing God, and it should be used only as a stepping stone finally to proceed to the Nirguna Vibhuti. Next slide, please. The Saguna glories are Ananta, they are infinite. So Lord Krishna says, I'm not going to give an exhaustive list. I'm going to talk only about the 72 most important ones. And each of us can choose any one that we like based on our vasanas to meditate on. The next slide gives the list of 72 Saguna Vibhutis. And Lord Krishna says, of all these groups, I am the best, because he knows that with our limited minds, finite minds, we are attracted to the best, to the most beautiful of things, and that might help us learn better. Coming to verse 25 in the next slide, verse 25 says, Maharshinam Bhruguraham Giramasmi Ekam Aksharam Yajnanam Japa Yajnosmi Stavaranam Himalaya. Next slide, please. Lord Krishna says, I am Bhrigu among the great sages. Bhrigu was one of the Sapta Rishis who tested the Trimurtis to determine who had the most patience. Vishnu won because he did not lose his temper or patience despite being kicked on the chest by Lord Bhrigu. Next, Lord Krishna says, among words, I am the word Om. It is a word of one syllable. Omkara is the essence of the Vedas. It is used in all three kandas, in Karma Kanda in rituals, in Upasana Kanda as an alambana for meditation, Kanda for self-inquiry. Next, he says, I am Japa Yajna among the Yajnas. Now, Lord Krishna glorifies Japa because it doesn't have the restrictions of time, place, varna, ashrama, gender. Most Yajnas have these restrictions, but Japa doesn't have that. It requires the least effort and is as good as any ritual. Lastly, Lord Krishna says, I am the Himalayas among mountains or immovable things. And the Himalayas are the abode of Lord Shiva himself. Coming to verse 26 in the next slide. Ashwatthah sarva vrikshanam devarshinam cha naradaha gandharvanam chitrarataha siddhanam kapilo munihi. Lord Krishna says, I am the Ashwatha tree, that is the people tree or Ficus religiosa among all the trees. Now, this tree is considered to be the abode of the Trinity according to the Skanda Purana. Next slide, please. Brahma resides in the root of the tree, Vishnu in the trunk, and Shiva at the top. Next, Lord Krishna says, among the celestial sages, Deva Rishi, I am Narada. Narada appears in the Puranas and in the Chandogya Upanishad, and he's also a Gnani. Then Lord Krishna says, I am Chitraratha, king of the Gandharva Loka. Lastly, he says, among the Siddhas or people with extraordinary powers, I am Kapila. Kapila Muni, he had Siddhi from birth because of his karma. He also had Nanam. In fact, he's shown teaching Vedanta to his own mother, Devahuti, in many pictures. So the take-home message is God is both the intelligent and material cause. The material cause can never be away from the effect. Ishvara is always in everything, and everything is in Ishvara. And we should revere everything around us as they are the glories of God. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Rika Madam, for presenting these 8 Vibhutis in the previous 2 shlokas, and also for beautifully pictorially explaining to us what is an intelligent cause, the nimitta karanam, what is the material cause, the upadana karanam, and also explaining how we have to understand creation with that example of the potter, the clay and the potter. So we see in these last two verses, there were many vibhutis which are pratyaksha, relatable for us, as well as some which were Puranic. So among the words, I am Omkara. Among the sacrifices, I am the Japa Yajna. Among the immovable things, I am Himalaya. Among the trees, I am Ashwatha. Among the celestial stages, Narada. Among the Gandharvas, Chitraratha. And among Siddhas, sage Kapila. I invite Viksha to present the next two verses. Viksha, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Uchchay Shravasamaśvanam Vidhi Mam Amritodbhavam Airavatam Gajendranam Naranam Chanaradhipam. In the next two shlokas, verse 27 and 28, Shri Krishna personifies the various expressions of Ishvara in order to make Arjuna understand the importance of being righteous and doing karma with utmost Shraddha and Bhakti. Next slide, Doctor. The Puranas describe the story of deities and demons churning the ocean for gaining Amrita, or the nectar of immortality. Before the nectar came out, several other divine entities emerged, and Uchchaishrava, the divine horse, was one of them. Uchchaishrava is a celestial winged horse that belongs to Indra, the king of the celestial abodes. Uchchai means great, and Shravas means prosperity. Symbolically, Uchchaishrava stands for the prosperity we attain when we put in focused effort and renounce our material desires. Shri Krishna says that among all the horses, the divine Uchchaishrava is Ishvara's expression. Airavata is a four-tusked white elephant that serves as the vehicle of Lord Indra. It is also called Ardhamatang, or the elephant of the clouds. He is credited with showering rain. His mother is Airavati, granddaughter of sage Kashyapa. Given his status, Shri Krishna says that among all the elephants, Airavata is Ishvara's expression. Next, Shri Krishna turns to more familiar grounds by referencing humans. Among human beings, he says, Ishvara expresses in the leader, but not just any ordinary leader. Ishvara expresses himself in leaders whose accomplishments are a product of their hard work and effort, and whose leadership is in line with dharma or righteousness. It is easy to get name and fame by the virtue of association by performing unrighteous acts. This is not the leader that is referenced here. So, whenever we see the result of hard work, a humanitarian leader, or the cooling rain that parches a dry land, we should remember that all these are Ishvara's expressions. Ayudhanam aham vajram, dhenunam asmi kamadukha, prajanaschasmi kandarpaha, sarpanam asmi vasukihi. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it recounts the story of the demon Vritrasura, who was created to kill the deities. When their weapons were rendered powerless, they approached sage Dadichi for help. Dadichi, without any hesitation, offered to give his bones to the deities so that they could create Vajra, the only weapon that could kill Vritrasura. Shri Krishna says that Ishvara is Vajra among all the weapons because it is powered by austerity and penance. In the Puranas, Kamadhenu is a cow that has the ability to fulfill any desire that she is approached with. Even a normal cow has the ability to provide milk to a family in need. Symbolically, Kamadhenu represents our mind because it can generate all kinds of thoughts, good or bad, out of thin air. Shri Krishna says that Ishvara expresses himself as Kamadhenu. Now, our mind has the ability to generate desires that prompt us to act. Kandarpa refers to Kamadeva, the Lord of Desire. Desires are the need of creativity, are the seed of creativity, because without desire, there would be no creation. As we have seen so far, the Gita does not condemn desire as long as it falls within the purview of dharma or righteousness. So when Ishvara manifests through those desires that are in line with dharma. Vasuki is the king of snakes and is seen coiled around the neck of Lord Shiva. He symbolizes our ego or ahankara. We are able to tame our ego, then it becomes an ornament, as in the case of Lord Shiva. If we cannot tame it, it becomes dangerous and can strike us when we least expect it. So Sri Krishna says that Vasuki is Ishvara's expression among all snakes. Therefore, to conclude, whenever we see someone devote their life towards a selfless cause, when our mind generates positive thoughts, and when our desires are righteous and our ego is in check, we should realize that all this is Ishvara's expression. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Iksha, for those beautiful pictures and explaining the 8 Vibhutis in the last 2 verses. As we saw earlier in this presentation, the clear instruction from Lord Krishna was, if you know the Vibhutis, which are the manifest creation, and the yoga, which is the unmanifest creation, you shall be blessed with unshakable conviction with regards to the Arupa Ishvara. So therefore, everything that is there in the creation is a manifestation of the Lord. However, we see here Lord Krishna intelligently pick up 72 attractive items in his manifest creation. This is to draw the seeker towards the understanding that everything is God. Slowly in the next chapter, he shall, instead of saying that among these I am the best, he shall move on to say in the 11th chapter that I am everything. And slowly the seeker is introduced to the fact that many not so beautiful things amongst creation is also God. And there are verses in that chapter where the seeker is made to understand how even those aspects can be understood as God and reconciled as God. So in these verses, among the mighty elephants, I am Airavata, among the horses, Uchchaishravas, among the men, the king. Viksha beautifully said how we can look at our guru as the best among the men. Among the weapons, Indra's thunderbolt, among the cows, Kamadhenu, among desire, the desire to create, among the sarpas, Vasuki. With this, we go to the next 2 verses. I invite Diksha to present the Vibhutis in these 2 verses. Over to you, Diksha.
Hari Om. Anantaschaस्मिनागानां varuno yadasamaham pitrunāmaryaमा chasmi yamah sayyamatamaham. Asmincha anantaha. I am Ananta. Naganam. Among the snakes. Aham Varunaha. I am Varuna. Yadasam. Among the water deities. Asmin Aryama. I am Aryama. Pitruna. Among the ancestors. Cha aham Yamaha. I am Yama. Sayyamatam. Among the controllers. Nagaha means snake. Here it refers to non-poisonous snake. So among the Nagas, I am Anantaha. Philosophically, Ananta means Nirguna Brahma. Otherwise, it is also called as Adi Shesha. So Shesha here means that which remains when everything else is destroyed. Then what is left behind is Brahman. Aham Varunaha Yadasam. Yadas means water devata. There are many water devatas like lake devatas, river devatas, etc. Among all of them, I am Varunaha. That is Varunaha Aham Asmi, who resides over the ocean, the biggest reservoir of water. Varuna is an important Vedic deity. Varuna is the celestial god of the ocean. Pitrunam Aryama cha Asmi. Pitruloka is one loka, and that loka is presided over by Pitrudevata. And the head of Pitrudevata is Aryama, a very prominent deity of the Vedas. Yamaha Sayyamatam Aham. Among the entire controllers of the world, of things and beings, I am Yamaha, the Kala Tattva. Thus, this verse explains that I am Anantaha among snakes, I am Varunaha among the water deities, I am Aryama among the ancestors, and I am Yamaha among the controllers. The next verse. Prahlaadaschasmi daityanam kalah kalayataamaham mriganam cha mrukendroham vainateyascha pakshinam. Asmin cha Prahladaha. I am Prahlada. Daityanam, among the Daityas. Aham Kalaha. I am time Kalayatam, among the reckoners. Aham cha Mrigendraha. I am the king of the beasts, that is, lion. Mriganam, among the animals. Cha Vainateyaha, that is, Garuda Pakshinam, among the birds. Daityanam, among the Ditiputras. Diti is the wife of Kashyapa Prajapati. Here we have to remember that from Brahmaji, 14 Prajapatis came, and among them the most prominent one is Kashyapa, who had two wives, Aditi and Diti. Aditi's children are all Devas and Diti's children are all Asuras. This indicates that we have got a mind. Devas represents the positive, healthy thoughts. Asuras represent the unhealthy thoughts. Generally, Asuras are negative in their thinking. But even among the Asuras, there was a great devotee born who is Prahlada, the son of Hiranyakashipu, an Asura, an enemy of the Lord. Then, Kalaha Kalayatam Aham. Among the ones who keep an account, I am Kala Tattva, who is responsible for the maintenance of ripening of the karma and the appropriate karma based on the law of karma principle. Mriganam cha Mrugendro Aham. All animals are the glory of the Lord. But among all the animals, Mrigendraha means lion. Lion is known as the king of animals. Vainateyascha Pakshinam. Paksha means wing. Pakshi means that which has wings, that is the birds. So I am Vainateya, that is Garuda, that is Vainateya. So here Vinata Sutaha is Vainateya. Garuda's mother is called as Vinata. So it is the Vahana of the Vishnu. So Pakshi Vahana, Garuda Vahana. In Vaishnava Sampradaya, Garuda is given a prominent position which is immersed in the devotion of the Lord. Hari.
Thank you, Diksha, for the presentation of the last two verses, which depicted the 8 Vibhutis. Beautiful pictures there. So some of them are relatable to us as Pratyaksha Vibhutis. Among the snakes, I am Sesha Anantanaga. Among the deities of water, Varuna. Pitrus Aryama. Among the discipliners, Yama. Daityas Prahalladaha. Among the reckoners, time. Among animals, lion. Among the birds, Garuda. And among the purifiers, air. With this, we move on to the next two verses. Okay, so we are now end of this presentation. So covered so far are the one Nirguna Vibhuti in the form of Chit, and several Vibhutis covered in today's presentation, 39 of them. And we shall see in the subsequent class the remaining from numbers 40 to 72, of which the last one is again Nirguna Swarupa Vibhuti, and the remaining will be Saguna Vibhutis. So these shall motivate us to look, perceive God in everything around us, because it is Lord Krishna's promise that this shall sail us through to the worship of Nirguna Ishvara. I now invite Kumari Narayani to chant the verses that were presented in today's presentation. Over to you, Narayani.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Adityanamaham Vishnuhu Jyotisham Raviranchuman
मरीचिर्मरुतामस्मि नक्षत्राणामहं शशि वेदानां सामवेदोऽस्मि देवानामस्मि वासवः इन्द्रियाणां मनश्चास्मि भूतानामस्मि चेतना रुद्राणां शङ्करश्चास्मि वित्तेषो यक्षराक्षसां वसूनां पावकश्चास्मि मेरुशिखरिणामहं पुरोधसां च मुख्यं मां विद्धि पार्थ बृहस्पतिं सेनानीनामहं स्कन्दः सरसामस्मि सागरः महर्षीणां भृगुरः गिरामस्मैकमक्षरं यज्ञानां जपयज्ञोऽस्मि स्थावराणां हिमालयः अश्वत्थः सर्ववृक्षाणां देवर्षीणां च नारदः गन्धर्वाणां चित्ररथः सिद्धानां कपिलो मुनिः उच्चैश्रवशमश्वानां विद्धिं माममृतोद्भवम् ऐरावतं गजेन्द्राणां नराणां च नराधिपम् आयुधानामहं वज्रं धेनूनाम् अस्मि कामधुक् प्रजनश्चास्मि कन्दर्पः सर्पानामस्मि वासुकिः अनन्तश्चास्मि नागानां वरुणो यादसामहं पितॄणामर्यमा चास्मि यमः संयमतामहम् प्रह्लादश्चास्मि दैत्यानां कलकालयतामहं मृगाणां च मृगेन्द्रोऽहं वैनतेयश्च पक्षिणां हरि ओम सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम.
Thank you, dear Narayani, for your wonderful and divine chanting. Thank you all speakers for your beautiful presentations, and Dr. Sundar sir for navigating us through this session so smoothly and beautifully. Thank you, friends, for your rapt attention. On Friday, please log in by 6:45 p.m. to see some more Vibhutis of Lord. Please log in by 6:45 p.m. as always. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.